All right, let's talk about something that can really test your patience as a parent. You know that moment. Your child is potty trained, things are going smoothly, and then bam, suddenly they're wetting the bed again. It's confusing, right? And honestly, pretty frustrating. If you're dealing with it, well, you know it can feel kind of isolating too. So today, we're doing a deep dive into this exact thing, nocturnal enuresis. That's the technical term. But most of us just call it bedwetting, specifically when it happens in kids who are already dry at night. Our goal here is really to cut through the confusion. We've looked at insights from the experts, the American Academy of Pediatrics, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, really solid sources. We want to unpack those questions swirling in your head, explore the actual reasons why this happens, talk about how to handle the conversation supportively, and give you some practical steps, some real things you can do to help your child. Okay, so let's just jump right in. The absolute first question most parents have is why? Why is my child wetting the bed again after they were trained? It just feels like such a step backward.
Yeah, it really does. And, the first thing to understand, which is often a huge relief, is that this isn't usually about defiance or laziness. For a lot of kids, it's still very much tied to normal development, even if they were dry before.
Right.
There are a few main reasons we see popping up again and again in the research. One big one is just developmental timing. Their bladder might still be maturing, learning to hold more overnight, or the connection between the bladder being full and the brain waking them up, that signal might not be quite perfected yet.
So they're just sleeping really deeply.
Exactly. They might be such deep sleepers they literally don't get the message in time. Then there are life influences. Think about big changes, a new baby in the house, moving, starting school, maybe divorce, or even just, general stress. These things can disrupt routines and, yeah, sometimes lead to a regression like bedwetting.
That makes a lot of sense. It really helps to shift the focus away from blaming the child, which I think is so important for parents.
Uh-huh.
Are there physical things, too, beyond the developmental side or like emotional stress?
Oh, absolutely. Physical causes are definitely worth considering, and sometimes they get missed.
Hmm.
Constipation is surprisingly a really common one.
Really? Constipation?
Yeah. A full bowel actually presses against the bladder. It reduces how much the bladder can comfortably hold, making accidents more likely. Some kids also just naturally have a, smaller bladder capacity. It fills up faster. And then there's genetics. This is fascinating. Bedwetting really does tend to run in families.
Oh, God.
So if you or your partner or maybe an aunt or uncle wet the bed as a kid, there's a higher chance your child might too. It kind of confirms what the American Academy of Pediatrics says: bedwetting is often a normal part of development and not usually caused by emotional problems or laziness. Just knowing that can be incredibly reassuring, can it? It changes how you approach the whole thing.
Definitely. Knowing it's not laziness, not an emotional problem,
Oh,
that's huge. But, okay, if it's often normal, just how common is it?
right.
Because when it's your kid, it can feel like you're the only ones.
Oh, it's way more common than people think. The numbers are quite interesting. Up to 15%. That's roughly 1 in 7 5-year-olds. Still wet the bed sometimes.
15%? Wow.
Yeah, and even by age 10, it's still around 5%, maybe 1 in 20 kids. And the really good news, most children, the vast majority, they just naturally outgrow it as their body and brain mature. It's usually not a lifelong thing.
Okay, that's comforting. But it leads to the next big question I hear all the time. When should you actually start to worry? When is it time to talk to the doctor? There must be a point where it's maybe more than just typical development.
That's a really important question because while it is often developmental, there are definitely signs that mean, okay, let's get this checked out. You should definitely see your pediatrician if the bedwetting starts up suddenly after your child has been consistently dry for, say, 6 months or more. That's called secondary enuresis. And it suggests something might have changed. Could be physical, could be stress, but it warrants investigation. Another key time is if your child is older, like over 7, and still wetting the bed regularly. At that age, other interventions might be more helpful, or there might be something else going on.
Right.
And then pay attention to other symptoms. Is urination painful? Are they unusually thirsty all the time? Are they having accidents during the day too? Those could point towards underlying medical issues like a UTI or even diabetes, though that's less common, needs checking. And here's one that surprises people: snoring.
Snoring? How is that related?
Well, consistent, loud snoring or signs of disrupted sleep could indicate sleep apnea. And sleep apnea can interfere with deep sleep cycles and hormone release, which, believe it or not, can actually contribute to bedwetting.
Wow, okay. I wouldn't have connected those.
Yeah, it's about how sleep disruption affects bladder control. So those specific signs, sudden onset after dryness, age over 7, other urinary symptoms, excessive thirst, or significant snoring, those are your signals to definitely consult a doctor.
That's incredibly useful to know.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we've covered the why and the when to worry. Let's shift gears a bit. What about the emotional side? This has got to be tough on a kid's confidence. How do you talk to them about it?
Oh, absolutely critical. How you communicate makes a huge difference. The Cleveland Clinic really highlights this. Your words, your tone, they really matter. The key is reassurance and patience, always.
So what does that sound like in practice?
Well, supportive things you could say are like, it's okay, sweetie. Lots of kids go through this. It's not your fault at all. Or maybe your body is just still learning how to stay dry all night long. We're a team and we'll work on this together. That together part is really important.
Yeah, that sense of partnership.
Exactly. And just as important is what not to say. Avoid anything that sounds like blaming or shaming. So definitely no phrases like, you're too old for this, or why can't you just stop? And please, never. This is so embarrassing.
Ugh, yeah, that sounds awful.
It really is. Shaming, punishing, teasing, it just piles on anxiety, which can actually make the bedwetting worse. It creates this negative cycle. Remember, they aren't doing it on purpose. Building them up with reassurance and patience, that's what helps them move forward.
That's such a powerful reminder. Okay, so we get the why, we get how important positive communication is. Now let's get practical. What can parents actually do day to day, starting tonight, to help support their child?
Right, the practical steps. Because understanding is great, but parents want to know, okay, what do I do? And there are definitely actionable things, drawing from sources like the Mayo Clinic. First up, routines. A predictable, calm bedtime routine is huge.
Okay.
And a really important part of that, make sure they use the bathroom right before hopping into bed, like the very last thing they do, even if they say they don't have to go.
The just try we.
Exactly. Then fluids. It's a bit of a balancing act. You do want to limit drinks in the evening, maybe for the last hour or two before bed. Less liquid means less urine produced overnight. But, and this is important, don't restrict fluids too much overall during the day. Kids still need to stay hydrated for their general health.
Right. Don't want to cause other problems.
Precisely. Now, for kids maybe over age 6 or 7, something like a bedwetting alarm can be really effective for many families.
How do those work exactly?
They're pretty clever, actually. They have a small sensor, usually clipped to the underwear, that detects the very first drop of moisture. When it senses wetness, it sets off an alarm. Over time, this helps train the brain to recognize the feeling of a full bladder and wake up before they wet the bed. It's like conditioning the brain's response.
Interesting. Kind of like biofeedback for the bladder.
Sort of, yeah. It helps build that connection.
Okay, what else? Making the whole situation less stressful must be key, too.
Oh, absolutely. Logistics matter. Using waterproof mattress protectors is a lifesaver. Saves the mattress, reduces stress.
Essential kit.
Totally. And having extra bedding handy, like a clean sheet, maybe even a spare set of pajamas right by the bed, makes those middle-of-the-night changes much quicker and less disruptive. Less fuss, less stress for everyone.
Makes sense. What about tracking? Should parents use charts?
They can be helpful, yeah. A simple sticker chart or a little journal to mark dry nights can be motivating for some kids. But the key is how you use it. Celebrate the successes gently, but don't make a massive deal out of it. And crucially, never punish or show disappointment for wet nights.
Right, avoid pressure.
Exactly. Keep it positive and low-key. Balanced expectations are really important. And don't forget that constipation link we talked about.
Oh, yeah, the physical connection.
Make sure your child is having regular soft bowel movements. If they seem constipated, talk to your doctor about addressing that because it genuinely can impact bladder function overnight. And one last practical tip. When accidents do happen, you can gently involve your child in the cleanup.
How do you mean?
Like, they can help put the wet pajamas in the hamper or help you strip the wet sheet off the bed, not as a punishment, but just as part of managing it together. Can build a sense of responsibility and normalize it without any shame attached. It's just, okay, this happened, let's deal with it.
That's a really good point, framing it as teamwork. These are fantastic practical ideas. But what if parents are trying these things consistently? They're being patient, and it's just not improving. Or if they're worried it's something more, who should they reach out to?
Great question. If you've tried these strategies and things aren't getting better, if you had those red flags we discussed earlier, it's definitely time to seek professional help. Your first stop should always be your pediatrician.
Okay.
They can do a physical checkup, rule out any underlying medical causes like infections or anatomical issues, and give you initial guidance based on your child's specific situation. If things seem more complicated, maybe related specifically to the urinary system, they might refer you to a pediatric urologist.
A specialist.
Right, someone who specializes in children's urinary and genital issues. They can do more in-depth testing if needed. Also, consider the emotional side. If you suspect that stress, anxiety, or maybe even some past trauma is playing a significant role.
Which can happen with those life changes you mentioned.
Exactly. Then talking to a child therapist or psychologist could be incredibly beneficial. They can help the child develop coping strategies and address the underlying emotional factors. And don't overlook school resources. If bedwetting is causing anxiety around things like sleepovers or school camp, the school counselor can often provide support and help navigate those social situations.
Good call.
And of course, for parents wanting to read more themselves, sticking to reliable sources is key. Places like healthychildren.org from the AAP, the Mayo Clinic website, Cleveland Clinic, and the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, NIDK, they all have excellent evidence-based information.
Fantastic. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it feels like the main message, the really big takeaway is this. Bedwetting is incredibly common. It's often just a normal developmental thing, even if it reappears, and it is absolutely not your child's fault.
So important to remember that.
Yeah. Understanding that seems like the foundation for everything else. Staying calm, being really consistent with whatever approach you choose, and knowing when it's time to reach out for professional help, those seem to be the most powerful things you can do.
Definitely. And remembering that, with that patience and support, most kids really do move past this phase.
And they come out the other side feeling more confident, right? Having overcome it.
Exactly. Mastering this step is a big deal for them.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. If you're navigating this journey with your child, think about what one shift in your own perspective, or maybe one small, consistent change in your routine could make the biggest difference for your family. Knowing that this is just a phase that so many kids successfully work through.